Hey there and welcome back to another DreamWorks video. And recently, I've been making a couple of videos about Kung Fu Panda, focusing largely on gushing about the franchise, from the animation, the story, the humour. Every installment fires on all cylinders. But I think there's one element of this franchise that shines above all others, that really makes Kung Fu Panda stand out from the pack amongst animated film franchises. Character development. No character's stagnant. They grow and evolve as each film and show progresses. They have new experiences, and they learn new things. The Po that you see at the beginning of the first film is utterly different to who he is at the end of that very same film. Then by the end of the second film, he's evolved again, and again by the end of the third. The storytelling makes sense, and the character growth feels organic, as opposed to some characters that feel like they remain stagnant, like Donkey from the Shrek franchise. Yeah, he has minor changes throughout the stories, but he still remains almost identical as a character regardless of the film. Like, all his growth and progress is wiped away when a new film begins, and he's back at square one. But anyway, like I said, all of this discussion about how good the character development is in Kung Fu Panda got me thinking about the various different characters of the franchise, both major and minor, and how their actions go on to impact the story. And that in turn got me thinking about the character of Master Oogway, and how his one decision to name Po as the new Dragon Warrior basically saved the world 3 times over. And during the course of the first film, it's made pretty abundantly clear that Oogway is a pretty almighty spiritual kung fu master, and thus, his decision to just go, sure, why not, this panda just fell from the sky, he'll do the trick I guess, is considered some sort of lapse in judgment, or maybe even a senior moment. Because Po is untrained in kung fu, he's unable to compete against proper masters, and he's utterly unprepared to even attempt to become the Dragon Warrior. But he picks him, much to everybody's consternation, which kicks off the events of the plot, where Po has to rapidly learn Kung Fu and begin to accept himself for who he is before he's able to confront Tai Lung, who's on his way to kill him and the rest of the Kung Fu masters and the valley, because he too wanted to become the Dragon Warrior at some point and was rejected because of the darkness in his heart. Anyway, in the end, it's revealed that the Dragon Scroll is more a metaphor than anything else. And it's more the belief in oneself that determines whether you are the Dragon Warrior or not. There's no secret ingredient. It's just you. So that in turn got me to thinking, is Oogway just a massive troll in the first film? Does being the Dragon Warrior truly mean nothing at all? Did he just pick Po on a whim, based on the fact that he could sense that this was a nice friendly panda with no darkness in his heart? Or did he just see him land and go, this is really going to get Shifu nice and heated? Is that seriously the reason? Did he actually stake the future of China itself on this apprentice noodle maker, on the off chance that he would be able to become a kung fu master in a short span of time and clap Tai Lung? Seriously, this whole plot feels like it was engineered by Oogway just to have fun at other people's expense. Having a scroll that he knows is blank for various different masters to try and contend for, to see if there was some legendary hero, a legend that Oogway himself invented, I might add, so obviously he knows that the scroll's useless. So why the hell would he pick somebody who could very well have ended up as a dud on the off chance that they might become a master? Yes, it ties into the theme of Kung Fu Panda 1 with Po rising up from being a nobody noodle vendor, and through perseverance and an increase in his self-worth, he's able to achieve greatness. But at the same time, it feels like a pretty ridiculous gamble to make from Oogway's perspective, especially since he knows he's going to die and he's not going to be around to guide him very long. Plus, since he has visions from time to time, and knows that Tai Lung is coming back to get him because he has visions about it, and since he knows he's going to be dead by the time all of this goes down, well, he'd probably want to make sure he's leaving the valley in safe hands, right? So that begs the question, why the hell did he choose Po? And whilst the film likes to parrot that it was all random chance and that everybody chooses their own path, and Po's simply been swept up by it all, like with Shen creating the self-fulfilling prophecy and the Dragon Warrior concept also just being a self-fulfilling prophecy, I honestly think there's more to it than that. I think he chose Po, not for the lols, not for the goodness he could sense in his heart, but because he was a panda. And to sort of understand where I'm coming from, we have to take a 1,000-year trip back down memory lane with Master Oogway. Now, we know from the lore of the extended universe that Oogway is originally from the Galapagos Islands, and that thousands of years before the events of the first film, he made a great pilgrimage across the world, eventually setting in the Valley of Peace, and becoming a self-taught Kung Fu master. In fact, it says on the wiki that he invented Kung Fu. So there you go, this guy isn't playing around. Anyway, he ends up befriending a dude called Kai, and they have a lot of great kung fu adventures until one day, Oogway is badly wounded, and near death, Kai drags his friend for days until they find the secret village of the pandas, and they healed Oogway using chi. But it turns out that Kai is also a total psycho and started stealing people's chi and banishing them to the Shadow Realm like he's the Pharaoh from Yu-Gi-Oh! Long story short, Kai gets clapped, but Oogway knows for a fact that he's probably going to one day return. He also has probably heard of the story of the warrior of black and white that drove Shen crazy and led to him genociding the pandas. And he certainly knows that Tai Lung is going to come back with the intention of taking the scroll of the Dragon Warrior and laying waste to the valley again. So what I'm suggesting now is that whilst there was an element of random chance in his choice of choosing the Dragon Warrior, there was also an element of pure choice, a decision that he made. Once he saw that a panda was available, despite his lack of experience, he knew for a fact that this guy would be the best choice going forward for the position of Dragon Warrior. He knew that he would be able to defeat Tai Lung in the end, despite his lack of training and experience, and that he would go on to defend the valley and China as a whole from the threats posed by other villains like Shen and Kai. And I think that it has everything to do with Po being a panda, because I think pandas in this universe have some super duper kung fu spirit potential. I mean, look at the facts. Oogway learned chi from the panda village, despite him being the pioneer of kung fu and spirituality. So at that point at least, they were more advanced than him in that area. And it seems to me that they probably have some sort of innate ability in that regard. Usually when you see a secret civilization in books, films, or TV, they always have some super special powers they do better than anybody. And this is probably one of those times. Plus, we see that Po picks up Kung Fu and Chi very, very easily and ascends to mastery in those fields within one film of learning each technique. I mean, hell, he beats Tai Lung after learning Kung Fu for what, a week, 2 weeks? It's not long. And Tai Lung had literally just beaten everybody else at once who had years of training and mastery. So, either Po is simply a Kung Fu god, or pandas have access to cheat codes. Plus, there are those other pandas in the shows and stuff that also seem to learn very quickly. And obviously, Oogway, being old and knowing lots of old pandas, probably would know all of this. So forevermore, I shall be convinced that Oogway never really intended to choose anybody else for the position of Dragon Warrior. He was always going to choose Po, because he just had to know that the last known panda outside the secret village was chilling in the local noodle shop down the stairs. And so once he knew that he'd have access to a panda, he was always going to choose him. Because realistically, nobody else would be able to contend with all these different bad guys so easily and so quickly. Like I said, the pandas have hacked the server. It was just a matter of waiting for the opportune moment. He even says that it's time to choose because he can sense the Dragon Warrior. He has epic Kung Fu master senses, right? He could probably tell that Po was nearby and that he was about to fall straight into his lap. He was never going to pick one of the Furious Five. And those fireworks fizzled out. And then they suddenly ignited. I know it's an explosive, but still, bit of a coincidence. Perhaps it was just Oogway being cheeky? I'd argue that's almost a certainty. He had to get him in there somehow after all, and I doubt manipulating the elements is beyond Tortoise Yoda. And then, this kind of ties into both sides of the equation. He isn't a magic chosen one, just like the Dragon Scroll said, because it could have been any panda for the job. But on the other hand, he's still the chosen one because Oogway always intended to choose him. But simply because he's a panda, and pandas are special, and no other reason than that. The rest of it, he had to earn himself. And I'm sure that other people have made theories like this before, but I haven't seen them, so hopefully I haven't left too many plot and story holes in this thing. I'm not a huge Kung Fu Panda lore master after all. But that being said, these were just my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think about all this? Agree with me? Disagree? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.